I always say that Hoonah is the richest place in the world because we have the most beautiful children in this world. One day, one of you will stand in my place because this culture, our values, what we hold dear, what we hold deep in our hearts, it must continue. It must continue. Respect. Respect. Respect everything. Respect other people. Respect what you are learning. When you are respectful, you are honoring your soul. You are honoring yourself. Keep that respect always. Let's line up here. Grandparents, our beautiful grandchildren are coming this way. Look. All of our songs, every single one, is a love song. And we express our love for each other. When we dance, we don't just do anything we want. We're holding the people in our hearts. We're holding them because we know that they are precious. We're grasping them, we're embracing them because our love for each other is strong. We also believe strongly that there is a creator stronger than ourselves, which is why we're here on earth. We're here on earth not to see what we can gain, but we're here to take care of each other. And so, Hashakin Yah, our Father in heaven. We talk about the raven and the eagle. We are actually talking about our history, where we came from, who we are, how we are a family, and how we are connected. I teach it to our children. I want them to know the importance of who they are. I want them to know that they have something to offer. I want them to know the importance of them being born and a part of us, that there is going to be acceptance. And we want them to be an enthusiastic part of things. The children, it overwhelms me every time when I see a small child singing and dancing, mimicking what he has been taught. It's born in him. It's born into the child. And not every Tlingit is going to grasp this. It's our lifestyle. It's our way of life. And when it's born in them, feel very strongly, there he is, the next leader. In 10,000 years, this culture will still be strong because we have something to offer. Qanakshish anyat kusani, is how our people, all kind and gentle listeners, I'm going to be speaking in my grandfather's words. My Tlingit name is Yetuk Dude and Chenduz Chaitz. Yetuk Dude means you'll be short of change. Chenduz Chaitz means she's priceless. I am a grandchild of the Kagwantan, the Kluchtnachadi, the Lukachadi, the Kiksadi, the Akquan people, and I come from the Raven's Nest House. My father, David Williams Sr., his Tlingit name, Kauksaka, when he became clan leader for the Chukanadi. When he was a child born, he was given the name Kashdiyaudaka. My mother, Mimi Williams, her Tlingit name Skanda Art. Let me tell you a little bit about how I was born into the culture. I was just a little girl, and my friend Shuni said that she's an eagle, and Linda said she's an eagle. So my friend Winona said, okay, I'm an eagle, and I decided, all right, I'm an eagle too. I went home for lunch. I announced to my mother, Mom, I'm an eagle. And she said, you can't be an eagle, you're a raven. I wanted to be like my friends, so I said, but I want to be, no, you don't choose. You're born into it. You are born into a beautiful culture, Carol. You are born into something that is sustainable. And don't deny who you are. That moment was the beginning of my education. I was raised Tlingit, surrounded by Tlingit artists, and the main language spoken was Tlingit. The word Tlingit means I am a person, and distinguishing ourselves from the animals. We are people, we're a person. So lovingly, kindly, patiently, my mom taught me the joy of being Tlingit. I don't often tell this story. My father, when he was in the 3rd grade, ran up to his teacher, she's a nun, and he said, "Yikri. And because he spoke Tlingit, she beat him. She beat my father. She picked him up and ran with him and threw him against the wall, grabbed him again and threw him. He was bloodied and bruised, torn, hurt, traumatized. He was never beaten before. What did my father say to that nun? It's good to see you. Where is the threat? I don't get bitter about it, no. That's the wrong way. Let me teach you a little bit about who I am so that you can have an understanding. And I would like to learn something of your culture. Let us come together. It's good to see you. I was looking this morning at the regalia the children were wearing, and one boy has a missing button, so I have to look and give him a button so that the blanket can be complete. It makes you feel so good that the children have learned the beauty of the Tlingit culture, the beauty of who they are.
Before Western contact, Alaska Native people have had entire Indigenous knowledge systems, our way of educating our own people for thousands and thousands of years. And then when Western contact happened and colonization started happening in Alaska between the 1740s and going into the mid and early 1800s, we started seeing boarding schools pop up all around Alaska. What you're going to see here are objects that were taken from that time period, and these objects are coming back home to the Alaska Native community. All of their objects that they had with them were being taken from, whether if they were taken from the children themselves or if the parents sent them with the child. There is this perception that everything was burned once children, started going to schools. Next to the model canoe is a photograph of Native children, and this came. So what you're going to see here is, kids as young as, 4 or 5 years old being sent away. It was completely legal to take our kids away, and in many cases, take away our cultures, take away our languages. As the leader of the Alaska Native Heritage Center, we have a responsibility to ensure that this shared history is taught, ensure that this never happens again. So what we're going to go to now is we're going to go see the only healing pole in the country that's dedicated to boarding school survivors. So let's take a walk outside. So this is the beginning of the Alaska Native Community Healing Garden. So I'll come on in. I always get chills whenever I'm around this pole. The idea behind this pole, we had the granddaughter of a boarding school survivor who reached out to the Alaska Native Heritage Center. Her name was Norma Jean Dunn. And she said, we need to have a pole that is raised, dedicated to every single Alaska Native boarding school survivor and descendant, and for those who never came home. When you look at a pole, it's very much, a lot of people that see this pole, it's represented, or they might perceive it as art, which it is, but it's also the first healing pole in the nation. And so when you look at the pole, what you're gonna see down here on the bottom is a bear with her 2 cubs, and in the human mask form represents what they termed title were Indian agents at the time, the taking of our children. But then you're gonna see a mask in raven form embracing 2 kids at the top. It signifies our children coming back to their community. It's just so beautiful that we were able to raise the healing pole here at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. And when we raised it, we had over 1,000 people who showed up. And so for me, that really does signify we're in an era of healing. This is a moment in time that just really signifies that, our community is hungry for this type of work. I introduce myself in Yupik. My English name is Emily Eden Shaw. My Yupik name is Kenegnagiagak, and I am Yupik and Inupiaq. My family comes from Imanik, Alaska, which is a small Yupik village on the mouth of the Yukon River. But I live and work on the Dena'ina lands, and I currently serve as the president and CEO of the Alaska Native Heritage Center. Last year, I was also adopted into the Raven Sletlanis clan in Old Masset Haida Gwaii. So I'm Raven Thunderbird. I have the best job in the world because I'm surrounded by the beauty of our cultures every single day. We welcome thousands of tourists that come to the Heritage Center every year. Anyone would have said this growing up, I wouldn't have believed them. And the reason why is because of my own personal story. I was not raised in my community. My mom was adopted out at birth, which unfortunately wasn't uncommon, especially during the territorial days in Alaska. And so my mother was raised outside of our community and culture, and in turn, so was I. I spent many years in Texas, but I moved back to Alaska when I was 18, and I'm now 40. And I've spent my entire adult life trying to reconnect to who I am as an Alaska Native woman. And for me, it's been a healing journey on so many levels. I have found it in my connection to culture and community has been a source of strength for me, but also understanding that I have a responsibility to pay it forward. And so everything I do really ensures that every single Alaska Native person, no matter where you live, deserves to have access to your culture. Here at the Heritage Center, we often say we're more than a museum. This is where our cultures come alive. This is where you get to see us living and breathing our ways of life, but also you get to see our knowledge passed down from generation to generation every day. Where we weren't allowed to sing or dance or even speak our native languages. My grandfather, when I met him for the first time, I asked him to speak Inuit back to me, and he refused to because of what happened in boarding schools. And so I think there is a real hunger and a resurgence happening all across Alaska, and even extending beyond Alaska, almost like a cultural renaissance, if you will, where Indigenous peoples, our cultures are thriving, our languages are being spoken in schools. And like I shared earlier, there was a point in our history where we weren't allowed to do that. And so there's a real hunger within our community, but also from our visitors. They want to learn, they want to hear the stories, the untold stories from Alaska's First Peoples.
Yali Ethlanda Shishida Aaron Leggett Gashtanak Shi Uchada Danainak Shi Nolchina Ethlan Chu Idlogat Skayach Dish Tukta Rick Leggett Shunkta Diane Bowles. My name is Aaron Leggett. I have the honor of serving as the president of the native village of Eklutna, the only federally and now state recognized tribe. And right now we're down at Chanchnu, or Westchester Lagoon. Behind me is one of the Indigenous place name markers, and many other partners. We identify important Dena'ina sites. Right now, we're at Chanchnu, or Grass Creek. This was a Dena'ina fishing camp. The Dena'ina are the indigenous people of South Central Alaska. They've lived here for the past 1,000 years. In the early 1920s, when Anchorage was selected as the headquarters for the Alaska Railroad, the early map makers came down here while the Dena'ina were fishing along the creek, and they asked them, "What do you call this?" And they said Chanchnu. They wrote it down as Chester. We said, well, close enough. The point being that there was no old man Chester that had a whiskey still or a homestead along the creek here. It's a derivation of the Dena'ina name Chanchnu, and Chanchnu means grass creek. You can see this grass that's starting to turn. That is the grass that's being referred to. If you look on the interpretive panel, you'll see that name Chanchnu, and then above you'll see this piece of artwork. This is an abstraction of a Dena'ina fire bag. This was something that Dena'ina men would carry with them as both an important possession and also a sign of status and wealth. Inside the fire bag, he would have the things that he needed to create a fire, like flints and dry tinder, things that he didn't want getting wet. Later, they would also be used to carry gunpowder and ammunition. This was created by Athabascan artist Melissa Shaganoff, working with the committee, and we ultimately selected the fire bag as a Dena'ina symbol to tell the story of perseverance that the Dena'ina had before the land got surveyed out from under us and million-dollar homes that you see behind us. We were essentially forced off of this location or told we had to vacate. But these fish camps, including my great-great-grandparents, were right all up and down this area here. So we wanted to remind people of the Dena'ina name Chanchnu, that it's not Chester, that it means Grass Creek, and that it's an important Dena'ina fishing location here in Anchorage. So I've been at the Anchorage Museum for the last 13 and a half years, but before that I worked at the Alaska Native Heritage Center as the Assistant Curator of Collections and Exhibits and the Dena'ina Cultural Historian. So my gloves are a pair of Athabascan beaded gloves. These floral designs They came in through Canada from the nuns. In schools, they taught the women floral embroidery, and then it transferred to beads. It worked its way across Canada into Alaska through the Alaska Commercial Company, the Hudson Bay Trading Company. And so today, a lot of floral designs are well-known artistic style of Athabascan beaters, decorated in beaver fur on the trim, and then moose hide for the actual construction. My necklace, again, made from red, black, and white trade beads. And then these white shells here are called dentalium shells. They're a small sea mollusk that grows down around Vancouver Island near British Columbia. They were traded up the northwest coast with Tlingit and the Haida of the Tsimshian to the Otna Athabascans. The Otna traded with those people for copper. In Tlingit culture, copper is the ultimate sign of status and wealth, and in our culture, these shells are. So they were highly valued. They were a sign of status and wealth. If you look at the logo for the Alaska Native Heritage Center, you'll see just exactly what I'm depicting here. Well, the reason I chose this location is that this is a highly visible location. I think there's thousands of people that come by, but also this project is really about is explaining to people that this still is our traditional homeland. We've never left it. We haven't been, forcibly relocated thousands of miles away.
I was asked to do that pole many, many years ago by the clan leader in that, and I begged them not to give me the directive to do that because I didn't feel I was skilled enough to do that pole. I see people use it the way it's supposed to. People are happy that it's there because it reminds them of a past. They had a rich history here, and it's in the exact position the original was almost 300 years ago. Of course, nobody was alive that remembered the pole, but they had been told the stories and handed down through the years of what the original looked like, and now it's back. It's back in the river where the original stood at years ago. My name is Jeff Skapelstead. My grandfather came here from Norway, married my native grandmother. The family I grew up in was a logging family. Went to school here in Hoonah, returned to Hoonah, was a teacher here, math and science teacher till retirement. A carver and formline artist are what I do. They're kind of connected together. What we understand when we go back in history, it looks like that from the carving, they developed the distinctive formline art that we have now. And it's always been debated back and forth what came first, but it looks like right now the evidence shows that carving came first, and from the carving, it set the rules and made this formline art so distinctive. In Western culture, we're stuck using the word art. And even though we think we've identified a Tlingit term that might include the concept of art in some way, they are not exactly comparative. Everything you see in here that we do is really not art. And when I say that, it doesn't have the Western idea of art. You don't make something and you put it on the wall, or there's tremendous responsibility when we do this art, because in this art is spirituality, history. It tells the story of events. They were good, bad. We don't like to use the word totem poles. So for us, when we refer to an art piece that looks like this is called a kutia. And for us, the most important part of the pole is the object that's on the bottom. So we start there first. So this is a famous story from my clan, the Chukaneti clan. This pole is called the Kakuch Kutia. Kakuch is a famous warrior, kind of equivalent in Tlingit, equivalent to like maybe Achilles, stories from Greek area and that. And so at the time the people were living here, they lived out near the coast and they were doing activities from boats. And there was a giant octopus that would attack the boats and pull the people overboard and eat them and kill them. So Kakuch, which is represented by the guy here in red, who's actually holding the octopus and the dagger, he was one day talking to his raven brother-in-law and said, "It looks like I'm going to have to be doing the battle with the octopus. He's killed all of our warriors. I'm going to have to do the battle with this octopus." And this comes from a time when people and animals could understand each other, and people from the shore watched the battle going on, and the water's boiling, and Kakuch is in the air, and then the creature's in the air, and all of a sudden the whole thing just kind of submerges and it gets quiet, and that's it. I made a promise to the porpoise people. I'm done. But I made the promise that you will never hunt the porpoise again. And then Kakuch dies. I had it on the other end of the store down here, and I had some old timers come down here and they came to the door here and looked across the room at it. And without me asking, they said, "Oh, so you did the Kakuch pull." So I felt pretty good about that because they recognized what I tried to depict here. Here, Kakuch, here's the dagger tied to his hand, and then this is the famous warrior. If I go to another town and I go to another carver's work and someone says, what does this pole mean? If I don't know the story already, I have no idea what it means. So it's not like there's some code that you learn about that. So if you remember Cliff Notes, and for those that went to school here in the United States, Cliff Notes were like short summaries of what you needed to know about a story or an event or something. So that's what these serve as. So what they are is we carve these, and then we put in the main parts of the story, and then we tell the story, and people are there, they're present when I tell the story. Then they remember it and say 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, I'm gone, and they want to tell their grandchildren about it, and they'll look at it like, well, let's see, how did this go now? It's like, and then all of a sudden it'll come to them like, oh, that's right, this is the porpoise. And so it reminds them of how the story goes. You learn this art, you have to learn all that too, because you're simply just a caretaker of the knowledge. This is not yours, you don't own it, you will never own it, and you make that agreement when an artist takes you on as an apprentice, that you understand that I'm teaching you this with the idea that you're going to pass this on to people who may not exist yet. This art is rule-driven. Say someone says, I want to be a poet, but I don't really want to learn the alphabet or syntax or grammar or anything like that. It's like, well, it's pretty hard to do that. So you have to go through all these stages of learning the rules so that your poetry will mean something. So when you do this art, you have to go through all the basics of how the rules apply and so forth. And once you know the rules like that, then you can become creative, and then you can design and make things that are original. So you can be creative. And a lot of times Western artists can't see that.
Seeing my grandfather at the kitchen table, people coming by, different elders would come by and they would talk history, culture, and my grandmother always had a cup of coffee in their hand. And that's why, even to this day, I can drink coffee as late as I want, just instilled in me. My name is Richard Dalton III. I am, my Tlingit name is Tikata, and I am Duxing Ton from the Raven Nest House and Chukaniti Yeti, child of Chukaniti. I do a lot of form line design, and since graduating from the Art Institute of Seattle, I started doing it more on the computer, using vector programs like Freehand and Adobe Illustrator. Form line art to me and my people is a way for us to tell our history, the oral history of our people in past and present. And it's important for us that we're able to do that and distinguish different tribes like our raven moiety and our eagle moiety. How did you learn how to do it? Where are you drawing your inspiration from? Do you know the difference of the different moieties and different clans and different objects and elements of the design? And like anything, you need to learn how to do something, how it was done before and where it came from and the meaning, so that you're just not copying or duplicating without knowledge or understanding. I think that goes for any indigenous tribe. These are some of the personal and commercial designs I've done. This one here is a raven design. The primary colors that I use, black is always my primary. In our culture, red is our secondary, and the teal, blue to green is our tertiary colors. And keep in mind that a lot of these colors weren't traditional to us. Like a lot of the totem poles originally, years ago, were never had color. A lot of the colors were created and brought to us from Western. Here is a good example of the process. This past year, the Gold Belt had their 75th anniversary of having the gold medal. They gave me a design that an artist had did, and they wanted me to clean it up and modify it so that they could use it for silk screening, embroidery, posters, you name it. So coming from a commercial graphic design background and marketing, I was able to take that design, redraw it out, and by vectorizing it allows my client to then take it and print it at any size, and it's always crisp and clean. When I went to the Art Institute of Seattle, I was learning vector and Photoshop and things like that, and then I started vectorizing from that point on. And I remember it was hard coming back home because it was something new. And I had to go through a lot of explaining how, well, I still do my traditional hand drawing because I think that's important. And then I go through various stages and then go to the computer. And that I've mastered that into my own form and a process that I can get things done.
Shape, but can we move this up a little bit more, make it more of a curve on that side? And
when I was questioned about it, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing the computer? Well, it would be like you getting a new steel blade from some other store or state or country that you invested into a new tool for your carving. You invested in a new sewing machine to do your blanket, you know, things like that. We have all of these tools available to us, and some people pick it up and some people don't. So that was just to help make them understand that I'm not just selling out per se to digital world, but there is a process that I maintain so that I have that history of art, have that history of drawing and conceptualizing before jumping on the computer. And what's nice about it is that with the new tools, it has allowed us to turn things around and share things. And to take it even further, this blanket was done through eighth generation out of Seattle, Washington. It would be like me developing a meme where I took my blanket from one of his photos that he had and I threw it on there for a Yoda. And that was just a fun thing to turn around. It might have been Indigenous Day.
Inspired a lot by my dad's books that I read when I was young. I had read that the Brooks Range is the most uninhabited mountain range in the United States, and that just really spoke to me, and I wanted to go there and live there. My home is located northwest of Fairbanks, up on Moose Mountain. I'm away from the city lights, so I have really good aurora viewing up here. I grew up in an area of Massachusetts where the population density is pretty high. And I always dreamed about what it would be like to be out and live in the wilderness. My dad died when he was 41, and my mom had 5 kids. And so she wasn't around much. She was having to work to help support us. And so we were raised very independently. And so when I was 18, I had already actually been on my own for a year. When I was 18 years old, I moved into an old abandoned mining cabin that had no running water or electricity, right on the edge of the gates. But for me, it was absolutely magical to be living a dream like that and learning what the wilderness had to teach. I've always loved the night, even when I was a little girl. I love being out in the wilderness. I am living my dream. I can control my own schedule. I get to see all kinds of beautiful regions of Alaska. For me, being out in nature under a star-filled sky, I have kind of a profound sense of connection and spirituality. I feel connected to this vast universe. There's often times where I'm not photographing. I will set my camera aside and appreciate the moment. It's very important for me to be able to do that so that I don't lose the joy. One of my favorite images is called Wonderland. It was captured right here in my yard. I love how the moon is in the scene, illuminating the trees that are covered in frost in November, and that the very subtle aurora coming through part halfway through the scene. Here is called Galactic Dreams, and it's an image that has the Milky Way running alongside of the aurora underneath, and Andromeda Galaxy as well. And I have very, very few images that include the aurora with the Milky Way and Andromeda Galaxy. And the temperatures are about 30 below that night. This is kind of what's called an Arctic entry, where typically, you know, people store all their Arctic gear, snowshoes. Tonight, because it's warmer, I definitely have my wools that I would put on, and a neck ring. I like to wear a wool neck ring that I got in Iceland. If it's a colder night, I go with my kiviot, which is very lightweight and warm. This is muskox wool. It's one of the warmest wool that you can buy. On a cold night, I have my fox hat that I like to wear, along with my beaver mittens, which I wear over other mittens. Tonight I will just be wearing some simple little gloves like these because I have access to my fingers to photograph with. It's a nice thing about fall is you don't have to wear as much gear. I would definitely wear a hat as well. Frostbite can happen quickly up here when temperatures are, say 40 below. I think it's like 10 seconds for exposed skin to start to freeze. So you have to be very, very careful of that. And I have been frostbit before. So camera gear include plenty of hand warmers. I always have at least 2 headlamps with me. The importance, like when you're out in the cold temperatures, bringing your camera gear in, you have to think about securing it in something where a lot of moisture is not going to develop. So I myself like to wrap my cameras in down, and I will put them inside my pack and then lay it on the cold floor just so that they warm up slowly. You have to be prepared for any type of condition. There are things that happen unexpectedly, road closures, and you could be stuck out for a while. People would say maybe it's a bit too much, but I like to travel with firewood. I have a saw, I have an axe, I have matches, lighters, a survival sleeping bag that goes to 50 below. Yeah, it's a lot of gear. It takes a while prepping for a trip. All right, so this is my Aurora Nook in here, is what I call it. I have a nice sheepskin here, down, sleeping bag, first aid kit, spare tire, cooking utensils and food, little stove in here, and also pack water under the bed. And one of the things I forgot to tell you about here is I like to carry an inReach with me because I am usually not in an area that has reception. And if there's any emergencies, I can use this. It has a little SOS button here that kind of works off the satellites. It depends on the temperatures, but I do have another sleeping bag that's a 40 to 50 below bag that I will throw in here for when it gets a little bit colder. My little pot for heating up water. And my tiny little cook stoves that I love, because if I am backpacking away from my van and camping somewhere else, this is what I'll take with me. And this provides me a way to heat up water, melt snow, make a hot cup of coffee, whatever it may be. Nice and light and efficient. But this is kind of my setup for fall right now. I have a CB radio and an antenna, And I use that when I go up on the Dalton Highway so that I can communicate with truckers or anybody else on the road. It's kind of an essential tool to have up there because it's rough driving conditions, things happen. You need to know what's going on and you need to be able to have airs and communicate. Aurora photography is very technical. There's so much to consider when you're out photographing, you know, because the aurora is changing its brightness constantly. You're having to check your exposure, your composition, and at night that can be challenging, as well as being prepared for the elements, which can be quite challenging, you know, when you're out in, you know, sub-zero temperatures, and making sure that, you know, you're going to keep yourself safe and your gear protected. I work very hard at what I do, that to see something pay off and that people appreciate it. One of the apps that I like to use is called Windy. It's fairly accurate. This is commonly used by bush pilots here in Alaska because it's showing the wind direction too. Right now we don't have really any stars. Doesn't mean that it's going to push out and be clear here any minute, or we could drive up the road and see what it looks like. To go a little bit further in this direction is what I would do, and see if we can catch any clear spots up here. 30% cloud cover in that area, so we're gonna go check it out. The clouds have kind of been our enemy lately.
As soon as you make it, slowly started to disintegrate. The best you can hope are good pictures of it.
Hi, my name's Heather Bryce, and I'm Steve's wife. I have been carving ice for 27 years. I have 11 World Championship titles. I transitioned from wood and bronze to ice when I met Steve.
My name is Steve Bryce. I'm a 30-year ice carver. Welcome to our workshop here at Chena Hot Springs Aurora Ice Hotel. Oh, excuse me, Ice Museum.
The Aurora Ice Museum.
Yeah. This is where we make all the parts and pieces that are going to go inside of the Ice Museum here. So if I'm redoing a room or redoing a sculpture, maybe about 90% of the time it'll be done in this area.
We've carved all over the world. Probably the best location though is here in Fairbanks, Alaska, where the weather is always cold and predictable, fairly predictable anyway.
If it's too cold, if it's too warm, it becomes a severe challenge. Pretty much other forms of sculpture, you know, you can control your atmosphere, but a lot of ice events, you have very little control over the weather. The sad fact is some of our best stuff never got great pictures. Photographs make it a little easier to know that it's going to be destroyed. It's the actual making of it, which is the creative process that gets you addicted to doing ice.
The art is in the making. The temporary aspect is part of the allure, I think, especially for the public, that it's only there for a fleeting time, has to be enjoyed immediately.
When two people are doing a piece, if you get stuck, the other person can come over and see it easily.
Yeah, he does a lot of the big ice removal, a lot of the bigger shaping. I love fine-tuning and really making the surfaces and the textures and just the really ornate detail pop in.
If either of us gets stuck, it's because we're looking at it too much and the other person's not looking at it so much. They can come and see exactly what needs to happen, and we help each other out with that all the time.
Drawing as well as a child, my aunt was really integral in doing fun projects with us, my sister and I. And I got started in shop and sculpture pretty early in my elementary education. And I love to pull inspiration from movies I've seen, from children's books especially. I love to create animals doing human things, just a little bit whimsical.
The magic comes from the last 2 to 3% of what you do. You know, you can sit there and do a scene and run out of time and it's good. But to turn it into magic, you've got to push it past an incredible level. To become an ice sculptor, it's advisable to go to an ice company and ask if you can get hired and acquire a few rudimentary tools and take it from there.
A lot of sculptors get a little bit of experience through the culinary field. They go to chef school and they learn how to do tabletops and ice trays and shrimp trays and things like that.
In heavy equipment accident, I've not been a painter or a drawer since, and I've been pretty much 95% ice ever since that, because when I put gloves on, I don't notice that I'm missing half of my left hand or my left thumb.
Oh my God, Kathy, I'm going to Bethel, Alaska. Oh yeah, Bethel. I don't think they have any electricity. And I'm like, what? Actually, my senior year in college, I was trying to figure out what to do, and I decided to join Peace Corps Vista program. And initially I was going in the Peace Corps to go abroad. And then I heard too many horror stories. And so I decided to do Vista, which is Volunteers in Service to America. I had a choice. I could go to Apopka, Florida, or Fairbanks, Alaska. Now, Apopka is maybe less than 30 minutes from my parents' house. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't join this program to be so close to home. So I thought, well, I guess I'm going to Bethel, Alaska. I talked to my college roommate, said, oh my God, Kathy, I'm going to Bethel, Alaska. She said, oh, there's someone on my floor that's from Alaska. Let me ask him about it. And she comes back and she says, oh yeah, Bethel, I don't think they have any electricity. And I'm like, what? And well, what happened was the power plant had burned down in Bethel like a couple of years prior. And so that's what that person was remembering. My name is Corliss Taylor. I've lived in Alaska for 45 years, and I've been in Fairbanks for about 33 years. I retired in 2020, and up until then I was working full-time and doing artwork part-time. Both my grandparents were seamstresses. My grandfather was a tailor, and so there were always sewing machines around. My mother and my grandmother made all of my clothes growing up. Didn't have my first dress that was purchased at a store until I was a sophomore in high school. And I was out in Bethel. I decided, okay, I need to figure out something to do. So I thought, you know, I'm going to teach myself how to quilt. And so I bought a book and taught myself to quilt and made my first quilt. And a friend saw it and said, can you make me one? I'm like, okay. So then I made my second quilt and then just started making quilts. I can make something really incredible and wear it. And so somebody was coming from California to teach this wearable art class at our local quilt store. And so I took that class and just kind of took off from there. It just became my new love because it was just being a way to be really creative using fabric. Yes, I call myself an artist. I know that there's, in the art world, there's a lot of, controversy might be a strong word, but between craft and art, I think this is a combination of craft and art. Painters have this palette of all these different colors, and they mix, you know, blue and green, or yellow and orange. You know, they're mixing these colors to come up with a new color. Well, I'm doing the same thing with fabric. You know, I will take a red fabric and a green fabric and mix them together in a garment. And this is the fabric that I chose for the lining for this garment. I usually start off with one piece of fabric that I look at that I really love. And then I take that one piece of fabric and I look at it and see what other colors are in that fabric, and then start collecting other pieces of fabric that go with that one piece. But I start off with my focal fabric. I always start off by cutting a muslin, and so this is my piece that I'm building on. I like to use anywhere from 8 to 10, 15 different fabrics. So I will probably pull out this kind of a turquoise, deep turquoise, greenish blue color fabric to add to this collection. As I said, you know, painters have their different colors of paints. They have the canvas that they are painting on. They're using their different sizes and shapes of brushes to make the strokes. And so for me, and for making wearable art, this is my canvas. So this white fabric here is the canvas on which I'm building up all of my color. Of course, I'm influenced by the supply of fabric that's here in town. But then whenever I travel, like I was just in Florida last week visiting my mom, where I'm from, and we went to the fabric store and I bought more fabric. And so whenever I travel, I'm getting fabrics and bringing back to my studio. So my garments tend to be very wearable, as opposed to something that's more gallery art. There are garments that are in galleries, and they're very, very elaborate kinds of things. 2015 or 2016, somewhere in there, we had our first show in California. When I see it on the runway, when a model is wearing it, my first thought is, wow, that looks really good on her. And then my second thought is, oh my gosh, I should have done something a little bit different. Oh, I should have had that fabric instead of having it there, I should have had it there. Or maybe I could have done, you know, we always are self-critiquing of what we do. And when I sell garments and people buy them and I see them wearing it, there's a little piece of me that's sad because I like it so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to keep that, but I sold it. And then part of me is just really, I don't know, proud, I guess is a word to use, that someone liked my stuff, liked my work enough. Not only did they buy it and take it home, but they're wearing it out in public.
I'm really proud when I see this airplane to see how it's impacted people, and in particular in Alaska. People are really proud of the Hakwani livery, the first commercial aircraft to be named in an Indigenous word, the Hakwani, the salmon people. Nowadays, there is a Tlingit word for art, and it's called atne. It's a new term. It translates to the happening of a significant event. The atu is connected to who we are and to our past, and the atne is showing that we still exist and live in a modern day, and we can have our language and speak our language and bring in and introduce new words in our language if we need to. And it's a part of how we are adapting to the modern day and moving forward. Introducing myself how my grandmother taught me. Kakia yukhat tuasak yesh ayakhat lukahadi nakhatsati athna dakahidi yekhat shangukhidi yadi ayakhat qonana nakhatsati. My Tlingit name is Kakia, and my English name is Christelle Worrell. I'm from the Raven Sockeye clan. I am Degaton Athabaskan from my mother's side, and I am Tlingit and Filipino from my father's side. I am doing a lot of public art, murals, large-scale work,
I also do painting and printmaking and graphic design. Co-owner and co-designer of Trickster Company with my brother Rico. We are an Indigenous graphic design art gift shop online. I think I'm really blessed to have a family that really nurtured my creativity from a young age. My grandmother has stories of recognizing that I was going to be an artist from a very young age. And she said that I would be running around like a spaz, and the thing that would stop me in my tracks was very vibrant, bold patterns and colors. And then my mother never scolded me for drawing on the walls. To this day, I'm still drawing on walls. We've been doing art. Well, before art was a word, we were creating a means to pass on information to the next generation. Whether it be for our regalia, so that we could recognize each other and know which clan someone was from, so that we know how to address them and care for them. Our libraries encoded in our totem poles and our longhouses and our canoes or our paddles. All of these are encoded with our cultural values, our stories that belong to particular clans. Designs that I do are formline, which is specific to the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian tribes in Alaska and throughout BC. Formline art is probably most recognized by totem poles, canoes, longhouse frontlets, and our chilkat robes that we weave. I think formline art comes from and belongs to Indigenous people, and specifically the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian. For the most part, I think that formline should be carried by our people. Just like our ancestors, they adapted to the time. What was modern and contemporary for them may be what is traditional for us now. And so moving forward and continuing being innovative and adaptable and being able to change with times is significant, while still simultaneously being rooted and knowing who you are, where you're from, and what does that mean. And so that's why I say a lot of Indigenous people live in two worlds, because we're connected to our ancestors, our land, the animals that we harvest, that we've always harvested from the past, to the future generations and our obligations to pass on that information, and also to the present and living and being here and now and existing as innovative and creative Indigenous people that are thriving and speaking our language. I was interviewed in Alaska Business Monthly magazine for my art. At the same time, Marilyn Romano, who is the vice president of Alaska Airlines, had proposed that the new livery get painted by an Indigenous Alaskan artist. And the mailwoman comes into her office and puts this magazine on her desk. And I'm on the cover with my art. And she reads the article and she says, I want her to do it. Coincidentally, 3 years prior, I had superimposed my artwork onto a Boeing 737. I had been wanting to see an Alaska Airlines airplane designed by an Alaska Native. So Marilyn Romano calls me and says, hello, Christelle, is this you? And I'm like, yes. Wanted to talk to you about designing an airplane. I saw your article on the Alaska Business Monthly magazine, and I wanted to ask you if you'd be interested in designing an airplane for Alaska Airlines. I can't say no. I'm really proud when I see this airplane and to see how it's impacted people throughout the globe.
I have memories of being a baby and in a crib and looking up at an Audubon bird poster. I'm Linda Infante-Lyons, and I am a painter. Grew up here in Anchorage, Alaska, and a lot of my inspiration comes from the island of Kodiak, where my mother and grandmother and great-grandmother, my Alutiiq Alaska Native family goes back 4,000 or more years. I was always drawing and drawing on furniture and getting in trouble, for drawing too much. So I've always loved art. Really what I'm trying to do is taking what I see and then trying to express how I feel. So it's important to me that the paintings or the drawings, mostly paintings now, show or express the feeling that I get when I see these things out in the world. My grandmother from Kodiak, she was very inspirational. I know that she did some drawing and painting, but she was a very busy woman. She raised a lot of children, and I don't think she had the chance to develop her art career, but I know that she's very creative. She also was in love with her natural surroundings in Kodiak, and we spent a lot of time on the beaches, beach combing and fishing and berry picking. She taught us names of the flowers, how to tie a hook so you could fish. My Kodiak grandmother was sort of that little seed of creativity since I was really young. My portraits now are inspired by icons, so in a sense they're symbols. I'm not really picking out the individual expression, but something that's more universal. And these portraits are of Alaska Native women. I'm trying to show them as symbols that expresses the authority and spirit of these women and their attachment to the land. This is a work in progress icon portrait. She's looking out into the world, proclaiming the authority that she has from millennia of living on the land. To me, women are very important. I came from a long line of very strong women. I'm very inspired by my grandmother, inspired by my mother. I have 3 daughters. I also saw through my grandmother how much she was the glue of the family. She was the energy and the one that had all of the stories and things that I needed to know as a child. One of the things that really inspired me is the Alutiiq mask. And a lot of Alaska Native masks have a central figure, and then they have an array around the head. This concept is I think, very similar, aligns with Christian beliefs. And Russian Orthodox Church is very prominent in Kodiak. My ancestors lived through the Russian colonization, and my great-grandmother, she spoke Russian and Alutiiq and didn't speak English. So that history is very close. I was participating in an exhibit called Decolonizing Alaska, in which the artists were asked to think about decolonizing and how to sort of repair some of the damage to culture, Alaska Native culture, how to move forward, as a living culture, and taking those pieces that were often repressed, elevating them, and in my mind, elevating the Alutiiq culture, and just melding it with Russian Orthodox or Christian or just in general Western. In other words, showing that the Alaska Native culture can be seen as equal as the Western. I like the idea of, instead of decolonizing, indigenizing, raising up, making aware to the world, this very rich culture and history. Like any artwork, as you create the work, you discover new things that you hadn't planned on doing, and you actually learn from creating. The actual artwork teaches you new things or leads you on different paths. It's not a purposeful message. It is a message that seems to grow over time, and then it becomes relevant with what's happening in the world now. And there's a lot of connections that happen as you go. There's also more subtle, messages, or the imagery can really start a conversation or an emotion. If someone can see my work or other artists' work and stop for a minute and think about what they're seeing and how they feel, they may come away with a different idea or feeling, but it opens your mind and your heart to something new.
You are in the University of Alaska Museum of the North in Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm Aldona Janitis, and I am the retired director of the University of Alaska Museum of the North. The museum has artwork that is contemporary, middle 19th century, very ancient, and some that is modern. And this is one of our oldest pieces. It's called the Akvik Madonna. It's about 2,000 years old, give or take. And it is not the Madonna. It's made of walrus ivory. The Inupiat, who are the group of people in the north who carved this, we assume, have a story of the mother of the animals. The mother of the animals is a being from whom all the animals of the world emerge. As you can see, there is a little creature on her stomach. She's holding this little creature that probably is a seal. Then if you look at her face, look at that smile. It's a Mona Lisa smile. That piece is carved so exquisitely with stone tools. A little anecdote about this is that when I came for a job interview here 35 years ago, I was walking through, because I'm a Native American art historian, so I've lectured a lot about Native American art. And I walked through the gallery and I said, because I had taught this many times at the beginning of my class, I said, you have the Akvik Madonna? I want to be in a museum that has the Akvik Madonna. And here I am. This is another remarkable piece of ingenuity. This artist who made this was the Siberian Yupik. This is a gut parka. It is made of seal gut. Women got the seal gut, cut it, opened it, and sewed it together, decorating it with feathers and teeth. It is completely waterproof. It is actually used. It is used as the hunters go on the ice. This piece, it's beautiful not only to us and to the Siberian Yupik, it's beautiful to the animals. So you are honoring them by making an artwork that is to be, that you're wearing when you're going to harvest them. And of course, you always ask the animal, I would like to take your life away, but I thank you for allowing me to do that. This metal piece is intended to look like whale bones, which the northern people use for food. I have been showing you what one might call traditional indigenous art made by Alaskan natives. This is a work by a contemporary Tlingit woman called My Face. The blue is a very rich, deep blue that is a color that is very common in Tlingit art, in painting, and a lot of other things. These items represented how much wealth you had. But of course, what we want to look at is her bursting out of this background. She's bursting out not of her culture. This woman is very connected to her culture, but she's bursting out of the constraints that some people have, saying, if you're a Native person, you have to make traditional art. Of course it's indigenous art. This was made by a Tlingit.
Photography has been around Alaska since it was bought by the Russians. The oldest photograph that's in the archives of the state is from 1868, and it was made by Edward Muybridge, who photographed sequential shots of horses running to prove that when a horse gallops, it's off the ground. Artists use these still as studies of humans walking. This is the Roseberry Gallery. I'm a photographer. I've taught photography here at the university for 35 years. And we're headed over to see a man who was a good friend of mine. He died about 12 years ago. He was responsible for all the photography here at the museum, for the collection. His name is Barry McWane, and this is some of his work. Some of his landscape work in Alaska. He was, out of the film era before digital photography, though he transitioned himself. But he was sort of like Alaska's Ansel Adams out with a big format camera, doing large format landscape work. And he put together this huge collection of images that we now are seeing some work out of here today. I think without Barry, there are a lot of photographers in the state who would have never sold a picture and never had their work in a museum or been inspired to do a solo show or get into the community of photography. I understand that there are 1,400 plus photographs now, and that it's about a third of the entire collection that the museum draws from for this gallery and has in its storage. So we're talking close to 5,000 pieces of sculpture, native arts, photography, paintings, everything, all arts. You know, photography is it's one of those arts that people still say, well, is photography an art, because it's got a craft side to it, it's got an informational side, it's done in photojournalism, it's done as home portraits. So there's a lot of photography that's not art. Mostly if you do a painting on the wall, that's considered art right off the bat. Photography has always had this chip on its shoulder and also this identity from other artists as, is it an art or not? Photography has often been a minor part of museums' collections because it wasn't as valuable. Edward Weston, Ansel Adams, those guys were getting hundreds of dollars for a print back in the 60s. If you have a Weston Pepper number 30 now, it's worth millions. So photography has come into its own as being a valuable art, which helps because the marketplace identifies something as an art. It's an art. Of course, photography is art. It's self-expression, it's emotional, it's craft, it's all those things that go into any art. These are from reindeer herding series that I did out of Nome, Alaska. Reindeer were brought to Alaska by a guy named Sheldon Jackson back in the late 1800s. What he saw was that a lot of native communities were being made to settle into villages, and they had been nomadic. They'd followed caribou around. These people have meat, fur, leather, the resources that an animal like this gives. So he brought reindeer from Siberia where there were herds. Reindeer and caribou are genetically the same animal pretty much, but these are domesticated animal. And I shot these back in 1990, just the year I started teaching here at the university. This work is by an amazing photographer named Jim Barker, who's in his 80s now. And he lived in Bethel, Alaska, which is out in western Alaska. It's a little hub community, a mostly native community. And he made these spectacular photographs of the subsistence lifestyle out there. He lived in a community for 12 years, working at the radio station, reading the news, selling local photographs and things like that in order to produce this incredibly important historic document. These are people dragging in a beluga whale. This is a young girl getting her hair fixed amongst two young girls getting their hair fixed amongst, I couldn't walk in there and not know these people and shoot this image. It shows his acceptance by the community, which is so important in documentary photography.
My name's Javelle. I'm a full-time creative, working artist, photographer. When I'm not doing photography full-time, I'm here at the gallery doing anything from sweeping, mopping, putting shows on. Whatever needs to be done, I do it. I came from Trinidad and Tobago. I moved to Alaska as a baby, but my family is still West Indian. We're still Caribbean. My dad is incredibly supportive. I love my father. My auntie, also cool, but she's still asking me when I'm gonna go back to school. I'm 32. I've had this gallery for 7 years, and every year she keeps telling me, well, it's not too late to go back and get a real job. What I felt was a need in the community for accessible art spaces. Growing up in Anchorage, Alaska, I loved it, but I didn't feel like there were a ton of spaces for creatives, especially creatives who were emerging, to play or exhibit their work or really sort of develop their skills. I decided to build something myself with a couple of friends, and so we built Tequila Space, the gallery. The gallery was started as a place where emerging artists could showcase their work and sort of get a feel for if they wanted to be full-time creatives or full-time artists. We built a studio in the back of the gallery, somewhere where we could do our commercial photography and videography and do some more of that work that helped keep the lights on in the place in early years. I don't know that I would say I'm a mentor for some artists. I think that the older I get, the more I feel like I'm slipping into that mentor role. You can't be the guy forever, nor should you try to be the guy forever. I think at a certain point, we have to step into that uncle or auntie role in the community. And I think the gray hair in my beard is telling me that I'm getting there. I was in high school and I was playing football. Not very well. I was terrible at football. But I would take photos of the junior varsity games, and then over time, those same athletes would come up to me and say, "Hey man, can you take my picture off the field?" So we would run around town, we go to like a cool building, or we go to the top of a rooftop, or silly stuff, and we would just take fun pictures and make fun images. I grew up very introverted, so photography allowed me to kind of go back and forth between participant and observer. So when I wanted to be included and wanted to be a part of the fun, I could be a participant. I could take those photos. But when I was nervous, or maybe I felt like I needed to go back into my shell a little bit, I could switch modes and go back into observer mode and still be in that same room. It felt good to give people images that they could see themselves in and feel proud. So I think everybody's beautiful. I think being photogenic is more of a mind state than it is any physical attribute. I often joke with people that the key to being photogenic, or the key to confidence in photos, is to pretend that you are an ugly boy. If you ever walk into a bar or a nightclub, it's always the ugliest boy who is trying to flirt with the prettiest person in the room. That ugly boy has the most confidence out of anybody. A lot of the work that we tend to show in the space tends to be from artists who are from a marginalized community of some sort, and that isn't always intentional, but we want to give the opportunities to the people who we feel don't get them as often as others. Very rare that I feel like a photo that I make is good. A lot of times I don't question why my eye is drawn to something. I just say, well, let me get this photo and I'll figure out why later. Creativity is a tool that we use to better understand ourselves. The creation of that, I think, oftentimes is just for that same end goal, to better understand ourselves, the roles that we may play in community, how we fit in with the world around us. I think a lot of that stuff is just trying to take things that are in your head and get them out into the world and make sense of them. It's up to you as the creator, as the artist, to decide, is this something deeply personal that I want to keep for myself, or is this something that I want to share with the world? I believe that good art should be a catalyst for conversation. I feel like good art should be polarizing. After viewing a piece or after consuming art, you should be so motivated to speak on it, whether that be that you love it so much that you need to tell somebody, or you hate it so much that you need to tell somebody. Good art should drive you to one of those sides of the fence and spark that conversation. Because if we feel moved to talk about something, now we're talking to each other. Now we're talking with our neighbors. Now we're talking with community members that we might not have had a conversation with otherwise. We don't only show art that we like or that we think is cool in this space. We show art that we think is going to incite a conversation. We show art that we think the community is going to respond to in one way or another, and they're going to keep the conversation going. At that point, it's once you put it out into the world, you can no longer dictate what the world does with it. It just has to spread like wildfire. This current generation of artists, I think, is so talented, and one of the things that I really appreciate about them is that they have so many tools at their disposal. I often say that it should take them half as long to get twice as good, because the things that I had in terms of photography, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. I had to penny pinch and save to get my first cameras. My first cameras were often hand-me-downs and things that I just borrowed. But nowadays, we've got so many incredible tools for creativity in our pocket. I'm hoping that we can get back to a place where creativity comes first and expression comes first, to provide equipment that people can use, they can learn on, they can practice on, without having to break the bank. If art is your calling and if it's what you want to do for a living, yes, pursue it. You will have to figure out how to do the business side, but I would hope that these emerging artists and artists who have been in the game for a while are still taking time to create for themselves, for that intrinsic value, and can find some space to think about things other than their finances.
I moved here about 9 years ago. I drove up from San Diego to Skagway, came up just for like a summer job, and I had no idea I would end up in Anchorage. It was sort of like okay, let's see what happens from here. I really love the small community here. I love how like we're all just really connected. That makes me feel like at home. So my name is Rejoy Armamento. I am an illustrator and a muralist. My dad, he's he's an artist. He's always just like drawing things, making things, building things. And then also my mom, she was like really into decorating the house, and so I was like surrounded by just like being in spaces where space was very like conscious. I like to do a lot of freestyling. I like where it can take me, and then I like to listen to the piece, and sometimes it'll just dictate where it should go. And then I get excited. I think I notice like when I'm really excited and I just see things come together and I realize, oh yeah, that's an art piece for me. I love being the observer, just kind of like watching things, visiting places and seeing patterns like on the street or something like that. It's like the outside world. Another big inspiration is like my internal world. I'm a very spiritual person. And I'm very introspective, so I feel like my inspiration, it kind of comes from sort of like, I don't know, it could be ancestral or just sort of like the subconscious, just sort of inspiring my work. Because, it's a dialogue. Like sometimes you don't even know, you don't realize what you're making, and then, people just tell you like what's going on, and then you realize it. But a lot of people say that my art is very playful and childlike, the kind of emotion that I like to convey, like a sense of aliveness. I'm mostly self-taught. I went to school for graphic design, but I took like, a few drawing and painting classes. So all the paints were like, but everything that I know is pretty much just through, I don't know, learning from YouTube or like just observing things and trying them out. I've also learned a lot from the people in my community too. If I don't know something, I like to ask another artist like for advice on how to approach things. One of my first murals is a Hunter S. Thompson mural for this dispensary downtown. That was my first commissioned piece, so it was like, it was a pretty big deal. Is still one of my favorites because I feel like it definitely represents my style. I love portraits. He's like smoking a cigarette. I just remember having so much fun playing around with the smoke, like just make it look very psychedelic. My style is very fluid and fun.
On the sacred spirit land of Yaqua, just off the island of Belliker, stood a man draped head to toe in a thick black tunic with a wooden kushtaka mask covering his face. The mask was painted a bright red and showed a hand reaching out of the mouth of an otter as a human was being devoured. Yaqua was the place of creation for the Klaguk tribe, the land that humans were not allowed to enter. But no one had seen the spirits outside of the stories in a long time. When I was in high school, I walked my younger brother to school there in the mornings and back home. And it was kind of a long walk and trying to like keep his attention, especially in the winter, it's cold. And so I started just telling him a story. So every day I would tell him a little bit more of the story, talking about a young boy who was Tlingit, who was around his age, and it was a fantasy one where he has these powers and he's going on an adventure. And my brother really enjoyed that. He'd get excited too. We'd start to walk home. He's like, all right, what happened now? So that's really how that one started. For me, I'm writing it as an analogy for racism and discrimination, and it centers in a fictionalized Southeast Alaska setting, which is something, another big part of all my writing is that I want representation. I want to see more of who I am and who our people are, and I think that's the most important thing on writing, is write something that you would want to read. I also like that you can just go in and read it at not as deep of a level, and then you still enjoy it, and you can get entertainment from like what's going to happen next to this character. So I like telling stories that work in multiple ways. As a writer, this is things that I work through and that I learn and that I can express through my writing. But on the other hand, that's also what readers are looking for. And as a reader who loves fantasy and young adult and high fantasy, these are always the kind of stories that I wanted to see more of. And so that's why I write them. I want to be able to put out the things that I want to read and be able to normalize and have more representation for us, and especially normalizing, there's a lot of Tlingit language in my novel. And so normalizing the use of it and putting it in is really important to me. Kastin yochat duasauk, ka saindachat, chukin shachat siti, enupiak yedi chat siti, Hoonah kawuayachat. My name is Kastin. My second Tlingit name is Saindachat. My English name is Caitlin Drake, but I go by Kastin. I am Tlingit, and I am a member of the Chukanady clan, and on my father's side, I'm a daughter of the Inupiaq people. But I am from Hoonah, but I grew up splitting my time really between Anchorage, Juneau, and Hoonah. It was a mix of bouncing between places. Most of my summers were spent between Juneau and Hoonah, and my family comes from Hoonah. We have a long line, and that is also what feeds into my storytelling. Is there's so much history here, and our family, we have a long line of fishermen and artists and storytellers, and that all comes through. And really, storytelling is so important to us as Tlingit people. Some of the earliest inspirations, I would say, my Tlingit names, for example, even they are rooted in story, because stories are so powerful. My name, Kastin, the story of that one depicts how us as Chukanady actually journeyed from where we were originally from in Glacier Bay to how we came here to Hoonah. Stories like that are a history for us. They record that for us, and they tell the story of where we come from and who we are. Here are some of my pieces that I've made, and all of them have a story to them. This is a drum that I made for my auntie. I wanted to depict her and her family. Because we're Chukanady, our crests are, our main one is eagle, and we have different crests, or octopus, eagle, porpoise. And so in this one particular, I was telling the story of her and her family. So up here we have my aunt depicted as the mother, octopus, and both of her daughters who she's carrying in her tentacles here. She's holding up both daughters, and then down here her youngest is her son is a little porpoise. And so I wanted this drum to show her how I see her family and her caring and supporting her children and being that mother. Recently, actually, last year, started kind of venturing a little bit and trying my hand at making regalia. This was a vest that I had made. You can see I have an eagle here, here's some seaweed. Can't see it, but I have a bear on the back, and all of it just to show who I am.
It's facing the water so that any visitors approaching from the water side would be able to tell that this Hoonah hit belongs to all of these people. This house, Hoonah Shukahit, represents the homeland that we all came from and is now our homeland, which is now being taken care of by the National Park Service. The purpose of this house is to have a footprint back in our home that we had left because of the glacier that advanced upon us. Kachias, Chukanedi, Hunakau, Chukanhini, Ani, Duktain Tanyetki, Gordon Greenwald, my English name, Kachias, from Hunakau or Hoonah lands. This screen represents the 4 clans and their homelands and why they left. You have the Duktain people in Lituya Bay, their homeland, and the glacier in the head of Lituya Bay, and the numerous tsunamis that washed through Lituya Bay that washed the people out. Though the Duktain no longer live in Lituya Bay, their canoe is still anchored. And you see Mount Fairweather, the mother mountain, to the Duktain people and all of the Hoonah people. As you go along, you see the spirit of the glacier that was called down because of disrespect and crushed the houses and the villages of the other 3 clans of Hoonah people. And you have Costine, young lady that was in seclusion at the time. And you see, look at her eyes, you'll see the glacier reflecting in her eyes as it's coming forward. One of the oral history was that Costine was left behind because of her actions, and the Duktain people covered her and gave her many sea otter robes to stay warm. They left Glacier Bay and went to Kaknuwu, and you have the spirit of the cliff that they built their fort upon. The Kagwantan people brought us copper, so you'll see the copper shield here. The Kagwantan canoe with the wolf and the brown bear is still anchored in Kaknuwu, though they live in Hoonah also. The Wushkitan people, when they left Glacier Bay, went to what we now call Excursion Inlet and built a fort. Then you see up here in the middle, there's a canoe with people, and all the people have their paddles raised except for one. For when we come to a new village site or another village site, we drift offshore with our canoes. We raise our paddles. May we come ashore. I come as your friend. I have no weapons. That represents all the other people, whomever they are. They come to our homeland as our friends. This kutia that we have is representing the eagle clans that are currently in Hoonah. Hoonah originally had 3 eagle clans that came out of Glacier Bay. These other clans are currently in Hoonah and have become members of our community. You have the Thunderbird, the Shangukedi, then you have the Brown Bear people, you have the Shark people, then you have the Porpoise, the Chukanedi people, and then you have the Kagwantan people. Then you'll see on the kutia the orator, that is the one that passes on all of our historical information that must be passed to us as we go from generation to generation. This second kutia here is representing the Raven people that are now in Hoonah. So we have the black-footed kittiwake down here representing the Duktain people, my father's people. You have the dog salmon, the Klinedi that are also in Hoonah now, the Kachadi, the land otter people that are in Hoonah and have been for many generations. You have the Deshitan, the beaver people that are now in Hoonah. The Koho, the Huknakari people that are in Hoonah. Takwanedi, the sea lion people. the woodworm people that are in Hoonah, the frog people, the Kiksadi people, and then you see on the poles our singers that sing our songs, and then you have the raven.
It's hard for me to imagine that people don't think of Indigenous cultures within Alaska as a very living and vibrant culture, because I just see it everywhere in Alaska and see the culture blooming in very different ways, whether that's through the dance form, through the art form, through language acquisition. Definitely feels like I have been witness to a renaissance of Alaska Native culture within Alaska. My name is Dekachin Maynor. I was born and raised here in Fairbanks, but I actually grew up in both Fairbanks and Anchorage. I don't feel like I particularly have a medium, but looking for work that addresses the issues of the day. Now, growing up in Fairbanks and small cabins, drawing was my general pastime. So this is referred to as a moon mask, kind of the face in the center and the outside representing the moon. I'll eventually get in some more detail that shows the rays coming off of there. It's made from yellow cedar, and it was a mask that I'd started a number of years ago. You know, I am Tlingit, and so I quite often defer back to the black and red as a primary and tertiary colors, but sometimes I just like to play around and see what colors will work with what. I leave people with questions. Hopefully they have a little more thoughts about the world around us and have some maybe investigation that they would like to do after seeing my work. I feel like my work really just represents my own perspective, but I do, I guess, enjoy examining power structures in the world and reflecting on how those power structures influence Indigenous communities. You know, that beginning exploration of drawing, it was a place to find worlds outside of the ones that I knew. And I think the arts have a way of transporting people, whether you're a maker or a viewer. Teach at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in the Native Arts Center. It's a program that started in 1965 by Ronald Sunungatuk. So we're coming up on our 60th anniversary of the program. It's a very unique program where we are able to offer degrees in Native Arts in the BFA and MFA level. The importance of the Indigenous Arts program, or the Native Arts program that we have at the university, really shows a commitment by the institution that this form is valuable within an institutional program, to be able to share it in a way that is formalized. I think it's very valuable to be able to kind of pass on knowledge within this form, but then also be able to give students a degree that then they can move on into a professional career with. I always tell people it's easy to teach technique, it's hard to teach creativity, right? And so I think that's one of the keys in the program, is being able to unlock people's creativity. And I'm not sure if I really teach creativity, but how to unlock other people's creativity. We've had students from around the state, of course. We get a lot of students from Western Alaska, Northern Alaska, and the interior of Alaska. We've had students from Southeast Alaska. The program is fairly popular with international students. So we get a lot of students from Sweden and Norway and Japan. Really interesting seeing kind of maybe that global perspective within the classroom experience. A lot of our students or alumni go on to just be practicing artists, you know, effectively becoming a single owner business and working. We've got artists that are showing all over Alaska right now, or alumni from the program that are showing all over Alaska, and sometimes out of state in Santa Fe, across the United States in different exhibitions. It's really interesting seeing how many students that have left the program do become teachers themselves, and kind of this cyclical passing on of information. I feel like the new generation is so much more well equipped than I was. There are many more opportunities now to study language. There are many more opportunities to study dance forms. There's so many more opportunities to study visual art forms that I felt like when I was coming up, unless you were working directly with an individual artist as a master apprentice, there weren't really many opportunities to take a course and learn any of those things. It's a moon mask with yellow cedar. It was one I started a little while ago, so it's nice to maybe revisit and come back to it. I've got one eye cut in, and maybe I'd start working on cutting in the other eye. Well, masks were traditionally worn in performance. Early on in my career, I saw very few people actually wearing them and using them. But today, I feel like most dance groups have masks that they work with in their performance. And so maybe the masks that I'm making are more, they're really artwork that is, that references a mask, but really it's a piece of work that is not a mask, if that makes any sense.
Native people have to be around Native people. That's when they get lost, when they don't have contact with their own people. Because some people don't know how to deal with all the hustle and bustle of town when they come from the villages.
Originally, knitting wouldn't have been Alaska Native traditional art. It was something that would have been introduced by first contact with the missionaries and that kind of thing. And it was picked up so well because you could knit hats for your family, mittens and gloves. These two ladies were at that first workshop in 1969. They are all elders that are deceased now, but they knit their whole lives for the cooperative up until that point when they were not able to knit anymore. Oh, yeah. Most of them live out in the different village areas. They do the knitting in their own home and then mail it back here. And then this wonderful lady helps to get it ready for sale. And those two wonderful ladies are the ones that help to sell it to different people that come by and visit. It started in 1969. Dr. John J. Teal, who was the founder, saw that a lot of the people were having to leave the village area and they were losing their culture by doing that. And he wanted to do something where they could go ahead and work in their own home and yet sell that product. And he saw the wonderful handwork that they were already doing. They picked something that was special to an area like this one, where the first workshop was held. It was out on Nunavut Island, and it was about 1,200 years old. They went to each area, they went ahead and did patterns or based on something that was traditional and special to that area. Most of the people that live out in the villages, there are not jobs available, so they live a subsistence lifestyle, which means they live off the land. They spend time catching fish in the summer, putting it up, drying it, getting it ready for the freezer.
This is the map of Alaska, and the red and green are cooperative members are from. The wild muskox are located. And then the barns are where the captive muskox.
Kibute is a natural fiber, a natural byproduct from the muskox. They shed naturally each spring. And so it wasn't an introduced animal. It was an animal that was native to different areas of Alaska already. And that was the other thing that he wanted. He wanted something that would be able to utilize a local animal or an item that the people could incorporate into their life and yet still incorporate their life into that item. So many of our patterns that our members are based on traditional patterns or artifacts of the area that they come from that are very important to them and symbolize that area.
I first started to learn to knit, I think in middle school, like at a club. And then my mom taught me how to do this type of knitting. I don't know, it's just something to do, meeting different people across the world, some of my family from the villages, and catching up with them, and just working on crafts like this on the job.
I think I started knitting for this co-op in the 80s, and I started working here, I think 2015.
Yeah.
I like working here because it's comfortable, I get to meet people, and I love doing my job.
I first was taught by my maternal grandmother how to knit and crochet, and I at first did more crocheting. When I first started knitting, I knit a baby like Barbie scarf that much, and then I put it down until I started working here, and that introduced knitting to me. And I'm like Sandra, I like knitting. I find that it's soothing. In fact, like I commented, it's soothing enough some days when it's hectic and I go home and knit. I'll knit and it'll put me to sleep. That's what's made the co-op a success, is the fact that, again, you can take knitting with you anywhere and you can do it anywhere. But in different village areas where we have members, sometimes I think maybe they go and talk to each other when they need help. They can visit with one another if they're close, but it's not a requirement. It's not a group participation type activity. It's very much can be a fill-in activity if you want.
I think there's newer members that are younger. It's fun knitting your own crafts or clothes, things like that, to have for yourself or giving it away to friends or relatives. We just talk about what's happened or what we've seen that was interesting or funny, or what's just going on in our lives while we're doing our crafts.
Yeah, I'm good.
Though only certain women were able to weave, you had to be chosen. With many elders, you kind of learn not to ask why. You just need to wait and see. You just need to take in what they say and follow with what they say. The answer will come. And she did. Right when she saw me, she said, "She's the one." And I remember her pointing at me like that. She's like, "She's the one." I take that as a responsibility. Kudayatun ka kudatan kla yukat duasauk, late ka hena Darlene Bezizikov si yuchat tu asauk. Khatshadi tu achkwedi ayachat. Yesh nachatziti. Kutit hittach ayachat. Wishkitan dachchanaya. Chukanedi dachchanaya. My Flickit names are Kodayatun and Kudatan Kla. My English name is Darlene Bezizikov si. I am Raven Khatshadi, land otter, from the house looking out. My mother is Tlingit and my father is Inungan, and I'm a grandchild of the Chukanedi and the Wishkitan, the Brown Bear clan and the Shark clan. The oldest form of weaving, right over here, raven's tail weaving, that was lost to our people about 200 years, and weavers would weave robes and tunics and aprons for high caste people, used in ceremonies, very important ceremonies. The raven's tail weaving is a geometric style of weaving, and a lot of the motifs that you see, the weavings that you see, are on basketry. And so a lot of that is incorporated into a different medium. Instead of using spruce root, the medium, and traditionally we use mountain goat wool. And it got lost. It was lost to our people for a number of reasons. But then chilkat weaving, this right here is an example of chilkat weaving. And it was also for ceremonial purposes as well, woven for that reason. And chilkat is the only weaving in the whole world that you can weave a perfect circle in. Not many people were doing raven's tail for a while, probably because you can put more oral history on here, with various chilkat designs. Well, one of the things really special about chilkat is there's a lot of unsaid things. Weavers pass on to other weavers, especially with chilkat. Certain things that you must do and many things that you should not do. And it's really important. With any type of weaving or any kind of work, you really need to be in a great space with your head and your heart, because everything goes into your weaving from your hands. With chilkat especially, like when you first get up in the morning, don't eat for a couple hours, just tea or water, coffee, and weave for at least a couple hours, 2-3 hours. And then if you're hungry, you can eat. There's many different things to follow like that. It's really important to continue making items available for other Indigenous people. Yes, it's important to make money, but it's also very important to lift up my uncle, to lift up our clan together, and to treat our guests that were there during our time of need. I'm working on a chilkat apron for an adult or else a young child's robe. And I know traditionally we weren't supposed to be weaving your own atu, which is going to be atu, clan property. And I talked to a few elders about that, and with a full-size chilkat robe could cost anywhere from, I don't know, $60,000, $90,000, if not more. There's a lot of work that goes into a chilkat robe. And a few elders had mentioned to me, yes, traditionally you would hire the opposite clan to be doing that for you, but it's okay. And weaving in sections here, with chilkat, wherever there's a straight line here, you're going to end up having a drawstring. What I mean by a drawstring, you'll have a string here that you can interlock. And so whenever there's the black straight line area is where you can have interlocks here. Like here's a little drawstring here, and I can pull it and it pulls the weaving together. So you're weaving in sections. So whatever you see flat straight lines, the main form line, you can put a drawstring in there. And so I'm weaving on this section right here, which has the claw right here, the black and white claw, and with the white and the black, and here are the claw fingers here. coming over to the other motifs. And there's interlocks along the way here and that I've got, and so I can interlock, and so weaving in those sections. And here's another interlock here with the border, and so you just pull and it puts the weaving straight together here. Yep. It'll probably take a couple months. Traditionally, getting black, you didn't really get black, you kind of got a charcoal, kind of a maroonish black, I guess. They would use natural colors because all we had was in yellow wolf moss, and you can get that in British Columbia. Our people traded, for wolf moss. We don't have any in our area. To get the deeper color, you needed to use urine, and the darkest yellow, the best urine to get is from like up to a 9-month-old baby. There's some things that you just don't talk about, and to me, a lot of those things was so enriching and so confirming to my soul. You're connecting with, I really don't want to say art forms, but out of a lack of a word, you're connecting with these art forms that are connections to our past, our oral histories. Some women will sing songs, or you're going along and you're talking to the tree people and letting them know why you're there, letting them know you're not going to take more than you need, and you're not going to waste anything. With our culture, we believe everything has a spirit, everything, animate and inanimate objects.
So here we're looking at what we consider our healing kutia. This one is representing both the Hoonah Tlingit people and the National Park Service. So we start with, at the bottom, Glacier Bay is our food basket. So you see the basket with the sea otter, halibut, the fish, our seagull eggs, and as we move up the kutia, you see the houses that are being crushed by the advancing glaciers that forced us out of our homeland. And we scattered for many years as our people left in their canoes. As you go up the pole, you'll see there that on the one side is Latuya Bay, the Dukdainton people. That was their homeland of Latuya Bay, and they were washed out of Latuya Bay with tsunamis. And so as they scattered for many years also, we wandered looking for our new home. Then you have the face of no spirit that has too many hands, too many rules, that has locked us out of our homeland, the federal government. And through the years, our ancestors were going through some turbulent times, rough waters. You see the tears of what they wanted. It was the foods from home and the land of home. And so you'll see that we were walking back toward our homeland. Then came a time in which the National Park Service and Hoonah Tlingit people came to an understanding, and they got a paper understanding that allowed us back into our homeland at times. You'll see the waters are calming. They're not calm yet, but they're calming. And then we had an agreement and a working relationship with the Hoonah Tlingit people and the National Park Service to build Hoonah Shukahit, our home, now back in our homeland. We all know what a chain and padlock is. It was my way of trying to say that the federal government has locked us out of our homeland, has not allowed us the free access that we always dreamed of having. Yet it's very contemporary. It's a way of sending the message to whomever is looking at it. someday I hope to be able to unlock that padlock. All of us know that we walk in the footprints of our ancestors and our grandparents. We are walking back toward our homeland.